Hello, Cules. Welcome to Barca Talk. I'm your host, Gabriel Quiroga, here in the Spanish capital. And joining me today is Victor Valenchik of the Houston Cules. Victor, it's been a long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Gabriel. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, we were tentatively going to record last night, but here was a late night game. And I was just telling you that I watched the 49er Green Bay game, and it didn't end till 6 a.m. here, local time. So I was pretty exhausted, but I was able to watch a little bit of the sports today and kind of get a different perspective on yesterday's game. But before we dive into the men's, I really want to go kind of in order and just talk about the feminine, because for as much chaos as the men's team is, the women's team is such a delight. We've been chatting about this in our WhatsApp group and so forth. The women won the Supercopa, I would say, very easily yesterday, and they won 7-0. Your thoughts on the feminine, just the accomplishments they continue to mount up. You know, as I tweeted out yesterday, if they win the tripleta this year, I think they'll go down as the best football team ever in a 2-year span.
You know, I think this is that's going to be if there's any comparison to any women's team that you would want to make to being a great team, when you look at what Lyon has accomplished in their 5 Champions League wins, I think that'll be something someone would definitely argue as being, one of the great, teams. I think they pretty much, set the bar for what everything that Barcelona is doing from a program perspective, and bringing in the right players, and the confidence to be able to achieve such great things. No question that what they're doing right now is going to go down into the history books. So I'm just excited for where we are right now. And again, the first piece of silverware is now on the shelf for the new season, and I'm just excited for the rest.
Yeah, and also they just sold at the Camp Nou, so I think that's going to be great. And we posed that question, right? Why don't they just play all the matches at the Camp Nou? Because they're the most exciting Barca product right now. I mean, I thought that would be an interesting thing. Obviously, logistically, it'd be a little bit difficult. But again, I just find them so pleasurable to watch, especially how they just, after one goal, they're hungry. They continue to fight for that. And I think that is something lost on the men a little bit, is when they go up a goal or they are kind of holding on for the victory as opposed to going after it, where the women really show that. I mean, yesterday, I put this in the WhatsApp group. I went to take a shower. It was 0-0. I come out, it's 2-0.
And that's how it works. You can't miss a single minute with their matches. And I think we're going to find a lot of analogies between, people can make like a decade ago, Barca was the premier club in the world. Now a decade later, it's the women in the women's, realm that are the premier club in the world. Kind of interesting. It's constantly making the comparisons when we watch what happened yesterday compared to just the pace of play and the sense of urgency that with every time they touch the ball. There's never a lethargic. There's never it never feels slow. It's constantly moving. The one touches, the turning, and constantly the moving forward down the pitch. The ball's constantly moving forward. It's completely the opposite of what we're seeing on the men's side, and that's, like you said, it's like you put it in the chat. It's like a warm blanket, right? And I think I put it in the chat a couple of weeks ago that I'm like, if you want to feel good before this game, the men's game coming up, watch the feminine, because at least you're going to feel good walking away from that match. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about them, because where they are right now, even with some of their injuries, right? They have injuries. I mean, They have Aitana she's basically like the, mini Iniesta on the pitch. And she's just, I actually felt like I actually missed her presence. As good as they were, you missed her presence because that ball just is like glue on her feet. And she taxed the box, and we missed a lot of opportunities because she's not in that role. Yeah. But no question that we've seen some huge players like Jana Fernandez. I think that's one of the coolest things. She's all of 19 years old.
Yeah.
And she comes in, Mappy Leon, who's she's like the PK, right? She's the absolute center back defender. She's never losing her spot. She's the Spanish international center back as well. And she gets hurt. And what does Jana, a 19-year-old, come in? she's rocking. They're
Yeah.
trusting 100% trust in her with the ball and moving that ball forward. And she's been nothing but amazing. So I've been so excited to watch her play.
Yeah, the thing I'm also impressed with is new coach. Basically, half the team, they replenished it. They've lost through free agency. They brought in new players, and Hansen is just like incredible. And then it's just like the whole team is just incredible to watch. But I just wanted to start off with that because again, they demolished Atletico Madrid yesterday in the Supercopa to get the first hardware, and they're already leading the league, so that's almost going to be a guarantee. It's just the Copa de la Reina and the Champions League that's going to be kind of in doubt because that can go either way. So we'll see about that. Well, we just, it's 10 o'clock local time here in Madrid. And the news just kind of came by on Twitter that Ansu Fati has decided to not operate. And this has kind of brought up a little bit quick debate on our WhatsApp chat. And I was curious to think about your opinion on this because I understand both reasons. Obviously you don't want to wish an operation. Operation is always, even though they say minor, it's still an operation. But I'm kind of under the camp that I kind of wish that he did have the operation because I feel like there's less that can go wrong as opposed to the rehab. And more importantly, Victor, with the track record of this, our medical staff with muscle injuries, I just feel more confident with an operation than trying to trust them with having the tendon heal itself and then to go from there. What are your thoughts on Ansu deciding not to operate?
This is kind of the first, I knew that a decision was going to be made today. I didn't know what that decision was until you just shared it there. And when I think about it, you can't help but think about Umtiti when that scenario, that decision point that he chose to go do some alternate therapy on it. And we know it didn't work. Right. And so now you're like, if this is his decision, is it going to work? And so I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. We obviously have a really bad taste in our mouth when it comes to these decisions. So
yeah, I'm kind of the opinion, especially with this type of injury. So basically the tendon, they're basically like if they had the operation, they would, staple it on essentially. And, I feel like there's less risk in that just because they would be more in charge of what's going to happen. Again, for me, the worst case scenario is that he doesn't operate. There's a setback and then we completely lose him for the season. And then all of a sudden it's just a year loss for Ansu. And more importantly, it's like the confidence. And I know the club is trying to portray this story of him like Messi went through the same thing, but at the same time, it's a little bit different just because Ansu had knee operations. It's not just the hamstring like what Messi had. So I am definitely concerned because, even though he still is super young, this is not a good track record and it's really difficult. I would say more importantly, the confidence to come back because as you know, with muscle injuries, it's really hard to pinpoint when that could activate again. And maybe you're kind of always guarding yourself when you're playing. So maybe he may not be able to be full speed going forward. Maybe like, let's say in April, when we need him, because we desperately need his goal scoring.
And you always wonder about a player being in form and then losing that form and, through time. And we've been real fortunate that he's gone and he's come back and he's still got the magic. Does that magic continue, that?
This is the thing, with sports injuries, it's all about timing and different things. There's obviously, when Iniesta before the World Cup was suffering under major injuries, and he had to put it together. And also psychologically, that does a deal for him as well, So those are the things that I'm looking at. Obviously, Ansu's a strong guy. I know he is. But again, just the setback, especially we saw the reaction when he came out the field crying. And more importantly, it's one of those things that like maybe 2 years ago, we would have this luxury since we still had Messi carrying us goal scoring wise, but we desperately need his goal scoring because right now we just cannot find the back of the net.
No, there's definitely some, I don't know what it is. Trying to figure out we've been playing all kind of different strategies up in that front three. And once again, we gave Luke, we're like, okay, let's continue to put in Luke because he's starting to score. But then another part of the system broke down because we didn't give him any balls to do anything with. If your strategy is to put someone like Luke de Jong in there into the middle, then you got to deliver balls to him, which we failed to do yesterday. And so we don't have no consistency in our ability to on attack.
Yeah, and this goes into the thing, right? Luke had one pass where he hit that shot wide. It looked good for a second, right? And like you said, there's this inconsistency. And today in the sports show that I watch, they had a really good, interesting question they had for debate. And they just said, is Xavi's tenure so far really that much better than Koeman? And so I'm curious to hear kind of your perspective, especially with your, with your group of people that you watch with the Houston Cules and stuff. What is kind of the overall? And I think for me, really quick, I think it's really hard to differentiate Xavi as the player that I love right now and Xavi as the coach, because statistically, as we put in our WhatsApp group, it's a little bit worse than Koeman. And yes, they sometimes look like they're hustling more, but at the same time, this is a results business and I know they have to grow, but like, how do we judge what's going on with the team under Xavi recently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I just don't, I feel like I don't want to start trying to compare apples to apples right now.
Sure.
I think he's really still toying with the fact that, yes, here are the cards I'm dealt with. And then here are my injuries that I'm dealt with. You've got things like Ferran Torres coming in, right? And he's coming in off being injured. So you've got a break-in period for him, and not only getting back to fitness, but also you've got him trying to just gel with the team. You've got this thing where you got Luke de Jong coming in, and all of a sudden he peaks. He gives you something for a few matches, and you're like, well, you can't just take him out of the game. You're going to like, well, that might be working. So you try to continue to make it work. And then we see it didn't work. You got the Magic coming in with Ansu, and then now he's out. So all of a sudden he's constantly toying with a system that right now, and to think he's going to get it right. I mean, I'll give him credit that the first half was abysmal. The first half was abysmal yesterday, and he decided he did something. He must have talked to Frankie. I don't know what it was, that conversation he had, but he unleashed him. He took him out where he was basically playing on the back line and helping to get the ball out of the back line with the defense. And then all of a sudden, second half, he's on the front line breaking into a striker role. And we saw just complete flip and change in the game because of it. It still wasn't enough. It was barely enough to get the win. But when we have these challenges, I think he's trying to figure this thing out as he goes, because he had to make a change. He had Ferran on one side and Abde on the other, and 15-20 minutes later he had to switch it around. I think Ferran is still not giving us. He's just, at this point, everything. I will criticize him and say that, he brought in I will criticize him on, like, when I saw Jukla come in, I was like, why didn't he come in sooner? I'm like, he knew that Luke wasn't working. He knew Luke wasn't working up and through the 70th minute, but he kept him in there when he had someone like Jukla who could have come in and made a bigger impact. Now, he came in and 3 minutes later we scored, but I know it wasn't his doing. It was the culmination of everything he did to allow Frankie to move forward in the front into the forward half of the pitch. So
let me ask you this with this, it's funny because, when Xavi came in, he was, obviously super happy to get the job. He was all up about it. And I saw video the other day where he was walking in the hallway and one of the mascots poked him and he just kind of struck at him, and it's just funny how being the coach of Barca is so difficult because of all the pressures, right? It's funny how, we've seen the memes where Xavi's going to come in with a full head of hair and he's going to come out as a bald man, that type of thing, right? We've seen it with all the previous coaches and so forth. Now, my question for you is, do you think Xavi just didn't realize how bad this team was?
I don't think, no, I think he pretty much knew. I think he knew, but I mean, how does he not turn down the club?
No, I understand that.
But
I'm just saying, like, obviously when he came in, he was hyping all the philosophy, working at the back, having numbers and all that stuff. But like, if we honestly look at this, like, sure, there's glimpses of that, but the consistency is what's lacking, right? Especially like when I look at the passing from the backfield, the mishandling of Ter Stegen's balls, basically going, from passing, not having a really great midfield that is moving dynamically together. Like how many times, either it's Busquets or De Jong or something, when they look to pass up, there's no one around, right? They always have to pass back. And those are the things that maybe Xavi, I thought was going to instill this philosophy stronger. Maybe obviously it's taking some time, but at the same time, maybe, from the outside looking in, we're criticizing, working with them. He's like, wow, these guys just really aren't that good or Barca quality.
Well, some of the things and I saw this yesterday. You saw like tons this slow, methodical, and it wasn't even methodical in a way that for purpose. It was just they were slow, and everything just took so many touches and so much time to develop that they really couldn't get that ball out. And unfortunately, what I was reading, and it made sense here, is that there was nothing from the center. The center backs were pretty much staying back, and nobody was being daring. Nobody had confidence in anybody on that pitch to move forward with the ball and to break those lines and make those passes. Interestingly enough, a lot of people criticize Garcia for some of his errors, but that's one of the things he probably does really well is bringing that ball out. And we just didn't see it yesterday. Not the lack of confidence, the lack of being daring to get that ball forward. In the team holistically, you saw frustration with Pedri. Pedri is the one that everybody pretty much praised yesterday because he was over there trying to motivate the veterans to make things happen. And so I don't know where that is. I don't know where that lack of confidence and where that lack of being daring yesterday was all about, but it just made for one of the worst first halves we've seen in a long time.
Literally put us to sleep. I mean, that's what it did. I mean, and the thing is, I was just watching, they have this show here in Spain called El Día Después. And what's really cool about the show is they take each game and they really go behind the scenes of the game. So they show like the coaching from the sidelines, during actions and stuff, and they have them mic'd up essentially. So you can really hear what they're saying. And one of the things that Xavi kept saying in yesterday's match was patience. And I find this ironic because I think maybe, like, as you just said, maybe there's too much patience. Maybe we're not taking these opportunities for counters when we have 3v3, that type of opportunities where I think maybe we should take those opportunities because every time we try to be patient, nothing comes to fruition, right? We never have like a really good attacking ball. So maybe I don't know. I think maybe Xavi is still kind of mixed up with the way he played at Barca, which obviously was patience, but also we had such a great team at that time, obviously with the dynamism that was going on. But now it's just like, yeah, patience is a good thing, but also it's not leading to real clear attacking opportunities. I mean, yesterday, we had one in the first half, if that. I mean, if you really want to call that. And then in the second half, we did score, but it was just kind of a fluke thing that just kind of happened. It wasn't planned attacking that we were going forward and being methodical.
No, I wish I knew where that came from, but it was just watching it just so slow and that patience was patience just on the other side. It was just a negative patience.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of what's it called? I was just talking with a friend of mine when this is a long time ago, from the 80s in NCAA basketball when NC State beat Georgetown. And it was like this huge upset because this was before the shot clock, right? And so NC State went four corners and they just passed the ball around. And the other Georgetown, I think I'm pretty sure it was Georgetown or Houston. Oh no, it's Houston. It was your boy. It was Houston with Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. Anyway, so what's it called? So NC State just worked the corners. That's all they did because there was no shot clock. And Houston got so frustrated they would try to trap, and NC State would get these layups for like 2 points, but they spent a minute and a half passing the ball. So the next year they finally changed the shot clock, to have this happen. But anyway, I was just thinking about this because it's kind of the same thing. It's like you're passing around, but nothing's coming out. We're not hungry, as the opposite of the feminine. Now, what I want to talk a little bit more about is Mr. Alba, Mr. Jordi Alba. This guy is something else because I don't want to take away what he did for the club and how he was as a world-class left back and all that stuff. He did that. But it is clear as day. We watch the games almost every week and so forth. And just the aging that's been going on and the lack of care that each of the managers have done with Alba of preserving him, finding a backup and all these things. And last night he talked after the game on Movistar and he went off. He basically said that he's sick and tired of people talking about him, but he's not bothered by the talk, he said. And then on top of that, he said, that they only talk about him when he's doing bad, but they never talk about him when he's doing good and so forth. And I'm just like, really, Jordy? I mean, you have to kind of like have self-awareness of like, you're just not the same player that you were once. You were one of the best left backs. I mean, I have memories of him scoring the goal against AC Milan in the Champions League, against Italy in the Champions or in the UEFA tournament. So like, I love Jordi Alba, but right now he's my least favorite player going on Barca. When is Xavi going to pull the plug on him, or what? I mean, we have no depth, so I don't know what's going to happen. But at this rate, like, yes, he had an assist last night, but I think he just is so. There's so many negatives about him on his attack, and on defensively, he's such a liability. Like, I don't understand how they're not seeing this on film and to do something to help him, because, for example, he's just always on an island and he gets burned. Like we saw in the Athletic Bilbao game when he got burned in the first 2 minutes of the match. There's like no excuse for that. So I don't know what Xavi does with this Jordi Alba quandary. Is he just blindly using him because he has faith in him as a player when he used to play with him?
I think about him as a player, obviously, and we were talking about this in the chat, what the demands of that role, at least especially at Barcelona. We have him running the full length of the pitch, back and forth, playing defensively and attacking. Yeah, well, the demands are there. You would hope his elite 7 of his coaching staff, these guys are there with Xavi to be able to go and analyze his fitness, his ability to do the job that we're asking him to do, match in and match out. And if our system is built in a way that requires and asks him to play as forward, which requires all that running, then there's got to be something that they can do to coach him in a way that says, listen, you don't get to do that anymore. You have to, in these situations, you don't get to go that far up the pitch. You need to stay, you only can go so far. Something has to happen where they coach him differently. I mean, it's just like in anyone else's job. If you can't, if they still need him, I still think he can be there. It just makes me, do I know the Barcelona system enough to say it's so critical that he plays that way and puts himself in that role in such a risky situation because he's so far up the pitch that he's not the right guy for it? Then we need to replace him. Or can we adjust? Can we adjust the way he plays so he doesn't put himself in those riskier situations? Because he doesn't have the wheels when he's tired after however many matches a month to be able to keep up with these guys. I mean, to keep up with Nico. I mean, to keep up, come on.
Yeah, this is the thing is that, as much as praise is Mateo Alemany's getting for Ferran Torres and stuff, I think there has to be criticism to this board about not finding a left back, to push Jordi Alba, because to me, it's been a decline for the last 2 to 3 years. That's been happening. And it's because he has so much mileage. He was a fast left back, but he doesn't have the wheels anymore. I mean, I just pulled up from his performance against Athletic, 33 times lost possession, 0-6 crosses, 1 penalty committed, 1 of 4 ground duels won. And I know this is just nitpicking on one game, but this is kind of the overall thing. Like, to me, what drives me crazy is his crossing, that he cannot successfully cross the ball. He's a world-class player, a professional player. That's one of the things. But again, as I said on Friday on the podcast, like, I think, Xavi needs to protect Alba and put him more defensively and use a 4-back system. I think the 3-back system has potential in the future, but I think right now we need to focus better on defense and having him and Dani Alves. I mean, you look at that. We have Dani Alves and Alba part deux, right? They have no speed, no speed. And we're trying to ask them to do wing back moves. I mean, to me, it's lunacy with this, because as we see that we're getting beat over the top constantly. And poor Araujo is the only saving grace. Imagine if Araujo wasn't there, we'd have no speed whatsoever on that back line.
No, I'm with you. I think when we think about Xavi and think about the job he's doing, I think it's all going to come down to those pieces. I mean, we know that players just don't miraculously, pop up and show up in our dressing rooms in our training pitches. We know we need money. We know we need windows to do that. And if we've got priorities, right? And we probably can't have everything we want right now. So how do we make the best for Jordi Alba? How do they work with them to make that happen? And we just haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen changes there.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I proposed a 4-2-3-1. Having Alves and Alba as the defenders with Araujo and Piqué, and then having the two. You can put whoever the hell you want in there. Obviously, Busquets, Nico, Gavi, whatever. Then Pedri up the middle. Then I had Ferran Torres on the right, and then on the middle, Luke De Jong. And on the left, put whoever you want, Hukla, whoever the hell, And to me, I thought that was going to be the best use of what we have currently, but also allow us to be defensively stronger because we have more protection, and you're not asking Alba and Alves to constantly bombard those flanks because, Alves obviously has influenced some of the games. Obviously, we've seen some of the assists that he has and just kind of what the movement he does. But again, I would prefer him to be on defense because I think we just leave too much space on the corners, and everyone knows to exploit that. So I don't know. These are like the things I'm constantly thinking. And I think these are the things that, like, if we tighten up these things, I mean, obviously we've been inching up closer and closer to fourth place, which is good, obviously. But at the same time, I think, like, in these big games against the top tier teams, we're going to have these issues, and there's just not going to be an easy game on the schedule ever for this season. I mean, we were talking Alavés. We're like, no, there's no. I mean, the next game is against Atletico.
I mean, the only saving grace with Alavés was the fact that there's a reason why they're at the bottom of the table.
Sure.
Because they were so poor in finishing. I mean,
my God.
Any other team would have punished us so bad
Correct.
yesterday. And I mean, when you think about Atleti, coming up, I am just thinking about João Felix running down the pitch and thinking, who's going to stop him?
Yeah.
Those
are the things. And so, like, yeah, especially that last strike before the first half, right? And I was laughing. I was like, I just can't believe, like, you just hit it right to the goalie. I mean, it's like almost you would rather have that, like, if you're an Alavés fan, to sky that. At least it showed some effort. But man, that, like you said, if it was any other team, they could have really been down and we wouldn't scratching. I mean, that's the thing is our goal conversion and our attacking is so lower tier that we can't afford to go down 1-0, right? It's just like we cannot climb back like we used to. And so that's why I just think, Xavi needs to reinforce the defense rather than trying to figure out the offense, because I think, it's a quandary, man. I mean, it's just really, I mean, we're just in such a transition right now, and it's hard to lean on these veterans because you still have the idea, the romanticism that they're still going to be able to do something incredible, and it's just not happening, especially, like, for example, with Busquets that we see. I mean, he's still leading the team in minutes, which is just crazy to me.
So it makes you think, where's that? We need a little Valverde in our life, right? You need a little defensive, we may not have been happy with it back then, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, obviously he could have even done better with it defensively. That's the thing. Our team was in a better prime at that time. So those are the things I look at. But again, I just really hope, there's obviously a break right now, which is nice. We don't play till February 6th against Atletico. But again, it's just trying to figure out where the improvements need to happen. And that's what I'm really focused on for these next games, because the defense is where I think it's, where we can win those matches and hold and get more points. And more importantly, just not give up leads. Those are the things. So you have any other lasting thoughts about these matches so far against Atletico, Real Madrid, and now Alavés?
No, I mean, falling out in the Supercopa is not what you wanted to see. Definitely not in a Clásico. You definitely, it was a rough month, but here's the thing: February isn't getting any easier, because when we look ahead, you look at Atleti. We have a derby. We've got Napoli twice, Valencia.
I was just thinking about that.
And we have Athletic Club. I mean, you're talking 2, 4, 6 matches already scheduled for February at this point that are, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult February.
I totally forgot about the Napoli thing, because on top of that, that's a Thursday night match, which leaves a very small window for recovery for the weekend. And, the one thing I would say, the saving grace right now is that Karim Benzema got hurt last night. Maybe that slows Real Madrid just a tad of their scoring. Maybe they don't get as many points going forward. I mean, they tied Elche yesterday. So we can see, one of the things that they were talking here on the news is that Carlo Ancelotti loves to ride his starting 11 to the ground. And so maybe we're starting to see signs of that. So maybe that could help Barca kind of slow the gap a little bit, but it's all good. So we'll see what happens with that. But like you said, man, the Napoli's, those games scare the hell out of me because I could see us getting worked really bad because we're just not in the mindset to travel on a Thursday to realize how hungry Napoli may be. And then I can also see us clawing our ways through, so kind of those two, that's going to be put on that Europa League anthem,
I'm just going to keep watching. For every men's match, for the first team match, I always got to go watch a Barca Femini match and feel better, or watch one after to feel better after the match. One of the two, whatever your poison is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for joining me. Good to see you. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks.